Team Awesome is back! That's right, everybody. It's Tangled Talk with Team Awesome. I'm Bex, and with me, as always, is Ellie and Kelsey. This is episode 2. Today, we're going to be talking about The Return of Quaid, which aired on Sunday, July 1st, 2018. It was directed by Tom Caulfield and written by Jeremy Shipp, and this is his first script for on the staff of Tangled, the series, now Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure. While he's actually been on the series for a while now, at this point in time, this is his first episode that we as the audience has gotten to see. But before we begin talking about the new episode, The Return of Quaid, we really would like to take a moment first to do a couple other things. First of all, we want to thank you guys for this outpouring of acceptance that you have for this podcast. I mean, we're just 3 total wacko Tangled fans who we had no idea this was going to do any good, and it's only been 1 episode so far, but we've gotten so much good feedback. We've got so many comments and likes, and we really appreciate that. And so, that actually gives us a lot of get up and go to keep doing this.
Well, I think what's crazy is it's not that people don't want to listen, or they want to listen to us. They were willing to listen to us talk for 2 hours about something that they knew about. And
honestly, guys, it's each episode is not going to be 2 hours long. We're pretty sure. Last episode was very special, being that it was the first one ever. It had to recap all of season 1, plus talk about an hour-long special that was very emotional for the 3 of us. Yeah. So we promise that not all the episodes are going to be 2 hours long, though they may occasionally be, regardless, because of reasons.
We can't control ourselves. Sorry.
Yes.
But like one of my favorite things, and I loved all the comments, and I've even like messaged the 2 of them, and I'm just like, I can't handle this. Like, these are making me so emotional. Mm-hmm. But my favorite was the anon that you got yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? That was like, I don't have anybody to talk to about this. So getting to listen to you talk about it makes me feel like I'm actually talking to somebody about it. And I was like, the fact that we make one person feel that way is enough for me.
Like, that one did my heart so good, because I used to feel that way for a really long time, because for forever I really only had you, Kelsey, to talk to, and then I got Becky, and then it was really only like just the 2 of you and no one in my I spew it all the time to my family. I'm like, oh my god, Tangled, but like they don't know everything, and they don't necessarily care, so I really that comment really resonated with me, and I felt it, and I was like, oh, I'm so happy.
And a little background on me, it's very similar that I'm a pretty open and friendly person, but similarly, it's not like I have a lot of people to talk to about Tangled in my personal life. Mm-hmm. First of all, being in my 30s, being 30 years old when the movie came out, it wasn't that I was ridiculed as this is for kids, because basically my whole family loves Disney, but nobody understood why this movie meant so much to me, and nobody likes it nearly as much as I do. The way that my sister has put it is that she's not even sure how she feels about it, because my feelings for it are so huge that they kind of drown out hers. Mm-hmm. So she watches the series, which is great. I really appreciate that, because then she knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. But like, she's seen each episode once, and I have seen each episode like 5 times at least. I mean, when Tangled Before Ever After first came out, I literally watched it all day that first day. Like, every time it stopped, I started it over again. And so I watched it all day long, like 19 times that day or something like that. But yeah, so similarly, it wasn't really until Tumblr, and even more recently than that with various individuals, you 2 included, that I really had people I could actually discuss it with, and like in depth, not just like, oh, Eugene is so hot, even though that's like totally our topic of conversation at least half the time.
Well, it's so hard to be like, oh yeah, well, this is what happened, and it's been really crazy, and then it's like, dude, let's like stare and analyze 3 seconds of Eugene's face for 35 minutes. It's like, it's different.
Absolutely. It's absolutely different. So, so that resonated with all of us. And honestly, I mean, Annie came back to Tumblr just to tell us that she likes the podcast.
Oh, that also did my heart so good.
Like, hi, Annie. Special call out to you, because absolutely, I wondered where you've gone. And now you came back just to say hi. And I saw your comment on the actual YouTube video, which is very cool. I'm so glad that you're keeping up with us. And so, yeah, that's number one order of business is we want to thank you guys for enjoying this as much as you are, and we hope we continue to be entertaining for you.
Yeah.
Number two, literally while we were recording the last one, is when the descriptions for all of the episodes in July came out.
5 minutes after I pressed end, I swear, I got on Tumblr and I was like, "Are you kidding me?
Like, are you freaking kidding me?" So yeah, so we would have gone over that last time and filling us probably into like 2.5 hours, so maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And so we're going to discuss that first before we get into the Return of Quaid. Mm-hmm. So obviously the summary for Return of Quaid is no longer relevant because we all know what happened in Return of Quaid. So starting with Goodbye and Goodwill. Rapunzel plans to bring the Goodwill Festival to Vardaros, but when the locals respond more favorably to Cassandra's ideas, Rapunzel becomes competitive. I have kind of a dual thought on this because it sort of feels like it is squishing Rapunzel's enemy and the Challenge of the Brave into one episode.
Oh.
And so a part of me makes me wonder, what are you guys going to do different to make this episode not just a duplicate of something you've already done? And so not to say that I don't trust you guys, because I trust the crew. I've trusted the crew implicitly, but that doesn't make me question things sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just, you say it reminds you of Challenge of the Brave, and I remember that's the first thing that I saw when I saw it. And anybody who knows me on Tumblr knows that I don't like Challenge of the Brave.
Yeah.
Still. So I'm like, please don't do this to me again.
Brave, but I still have like the issues. Every time I watch it, I get mad at Cassandra all over again.
I'm so upset with her.
I like you now a lot, but every time I watch that episode, I'm like, should have gone different.
I'm not.
One of the things I'm wondering about this, though, is it specifies that Rapunzel becomes competitive. So it makes me wonder if Cass is going to be totally chill about this, and Rapunzel, who's already had a taste of jealousy or something, is going to be like, no, that's not what I wanted.
I swear, season 2 Rapunzel has like snapped. It is so great. Like,
yeah. I saw a comment on Tumblr earlier, and I totally agree with that. You know, season 2 started, and now she is so quick to pick a fight.
She's like, wild.
Like really fast. She will. Oh, hi. I'm sorry, my kitten's attacking me. So she's really quick. Whenever a fight happens, she's so fast to pick up the weapons and get ready to go. Yep. And so I'm really curious how this is going to go down in Goodbye and Goodwill. Forest of No Return. When the gang gets lost in mysterious Forest of No Return, they must rely on the mysterious Adira as their guide. I'm fine with this.
Yes, Adira!
Like, I freaking love her. Like, I'm like, this was like, seriously, she can't beat Lance as my favorite character, but she shot up there really high.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm excited to see her again.
I'm super excited. This is the one that I get, like, the morning after my wedding. I'm like, heck yes, Adira.
Yes!
Bring it on.
Woo!
Best gift ever.
All right, so Freebird. I know that we are all kind of wary of Freebird, and by us all, I mean the three of us. We're not speaking for you guys, but Rapunzel's adventurous spirit leads the gang to a hidden corner of the woods where everyone's magically transformed into birds. Okay.
Birds.
So this could go a couple of ways.
Yep.
First of all, it could be adorable because Rapunzel's going to be a bird and she's going to be able to literally fly, and I think she's going to be very excited, and that's going to be super cute. But on the other hand, I'm like, what's the point?
Agreed.
So, yeah, I guess we're going to have to find out about that. And then Vigor the Visionary, which I'm... Vigor the Visionary, for those who don't know, Vigor the Visionary is a character who has been brought over from an earlier version of the movie. He's actually, you can see a deleted scene of storyboards of him on the Tangled Blu-ray. So yeah, he's a fortune-telling monkey, literally. That's what he is. And apparently he's pretty dang accurate. So this one specifies when Rapunzel and Eugene visit a psychic monkey, his visions lead them on an adventure to find the family of their old friend and young thief, Angry. So, yay, Angry!
Yes.
Yay! And my beautiful daughter's coming back.
If Angry can Red. I mean, so it does not, people have pointed out, specify that we will see Angry herself, which makes it very curious. Are we going to actually see Angry, or is it just going to be leading us towards her?
Yeah.
I did not spearhead this thought, but I kind of developed it a little bit further. If Angry has a family, then what are the chances that Vex is her sister? And
I do like this theory.
Yeah, some of the thoughts they look relatively similar. Now, granted, Vex does not have Eastern Asian eyes, and she's got a paler complexion, but Vex and Angry
half
are
sisters.
They could be half sisters, or they could both be mixed race and just pick up different traits of parents. But most specifically, Vex and Angry are practically synonyms.
Yes, they are.
So even though we all know that Angry is not her real name because Eugene named her that, it's still interesting. And so I'm kind of currently, well, I don't usually like to get so hard behind theories that I like, I'll believe it until they prove me wrong. I'm kind of this one. I'll believe it until they prove me wrong. When they tell me otherwise, I'll be like, okay, I'll let it go. But for now, I'm like, nope, let her die.
I mean, Vex might not be her actual name either.
Yeah.
That's true.
We don't know for certain.
Also, they might not be actual sisters, but they might be like adopted sisters who hang out together, foster sisters, and they're just like, well, we're the closest thing we've got. I mean, other than Red, obviously. And speaking of Red, this one is much more just kick it around, just an idea. I'm not married to this idea at all. But if Angry is Vex's sister, what if Red was Stallion's sister?
Because that would be wild.
That would
be so wild.
And it would be this interesting situation of the princess older sister who gets everything handed to her, and then the unwanted younger sister who kind of gets turned out like an urchin, you know? Yeah. So that would be an interesting dynamic to explore in this series. So those are my thoughts, and those are my ideas regarding July's episodes. So if we have covered all of that, on to the actual episode.
Woohoo!
So, yes, The Return of Quaid. Like I said, it was written by Jeremy Shipp, who was new on the staff for season 2, so we're just now seeing stuff from him. Directed by Tom Caulfield, who, if you are familiar with my blog at all, then you know who Tom Caulfield is.
Oh, Tom.
He is one of the most expressive directors we've got out there. He regularly posts his storyboards. He really likes Andrew, and that
yes, he does.
He will bring Andrew back up on his Twitter at the most random freaking times. It's like amazing, and especially when it's to antagonize Varian, and it's like, I mean, you can really, through his fan art using Andrew, you can really see the kind of camaraderie and joking attitude that the crew has together, because he'll antagonize Varian, and so then Kate will antagonize Andrew back, and it goes back and forth, and it's so much fun. And so I really enjoy following Tom on Twitter and checking up on him and seeing what he's got to say to all of us. Also, we've got 2 new season 2 storyboard artists for this episode. We've got Anna Lencioni, who most of us know as Banana Bread on Tumblr. She is Kate Ritter's best friend, and we've been aware of her for a very long time because she's actually been working on the series basically as long as it's been airing. So, rather, I mean, that's kind of confusing to say. If, in case you're not aware, it usually takes about 1.5 years to completely produce a single episode, which means that by the time season 1 was starting to air, they were already starting to work on season 2. And now that season 2 is starting to air, they're already working on season 3. So any new staff members have actually been on the staff for like a year already, at least. So, and then there's also Gail Behrens. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Gail, if you're listening, which I don't know if you are. But but so those are our 2 new storyboard artists, and I'm super excited to have more artists on the team. It's always really great to me to be able to recognize the individual crew members, because they all work so hard. And Tom, I know we were just talking about him, but he won a Daytime Emmy for this show.
Yay!
Yes!
Like,
go Tom!
So Tom has helped Tangled win one of its very few awards, considering he's been nominated for a lot. Tangled has not won a lot of anything. And so go Tom, you're doing us proud. So I think it's very important to recognize all of the individuals. And if I had every single individual crew member's name right in front of me, I'd spend an hour just reading the list, just so everybody would get to know them all. Okay, so The Return of Quaid. This was fun. I enjoyed it. After reading the description, I felt like it was going to be a Western, and I was not disappointed. It was absolutely a Western style episode. And I think we can all agree that the pacing is not the best.
Yeah. It was a little confusing.
It went by so fast. Yeah. Like, I had some issues with my internet and my cable box the morning of the episode, and I had watched it the night before, and by the time I got it hooked up, we were like 3 or 4 minutes in, and they're already like talking about Quaid, and I'm like, dang, okay, that went by real fast. Like the whole Anthony the Weasel thing taking over and all that goes by in like 3 minutes. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, but beyond that, that's probably the only problem I have with it. Otherwise, this episode was like so much fun. Like,
it really was.
For one thing, Lance, who everybody knows I adore, freaking stole the show.
Yeah,
he really did.
So great in this episode. I mean, and the funny thing is that ever since season 1, just the way that he talks and tells stories, I have felt like he wanted to be an actor. And then, first of all, Rapunzel in the Vanishing Village said so. But I always take things that happen in the books with a grain of salt, because they also said that there were 2 caravans and there's only one. So it's like, so obviously not all the details are accurate. But Vanishing Village first, like, canonically brought up the idea that Lance wanted to be an actor, and then this episode cemented it. And so when Lance gets his chance to act, it's just hysterical and it's golden, and I can't wait to see more with that.
And Eugene is being such a stinker about it.
He really is.
Gosh, right?
He was better as the bush. And I'm like,
he's still salty about that whole Flynn Rider thing in Vanishing Village. Just ignore him. He's fine.
Honestly, yeah. What a stinker.
He got his show ruined. He's still salty.
He's still salty. So we have all of Lance's gloriousness. The score for this episode was like so, especially adding to that
so good,
that Western feel. Kevin Kleisch is just, I love that he's doing the composing for this. And I think the first time I ever became aware of his name is when I was looking at the score for Tangled Ever After. And I wanted to just take the piece of music that was during the closing credits, because I always felt like, oh, this feels like it's actually a song that they never actually recorded the lyrics to. And then I'm like, oh, that's not, that's Kevin Kleisch. And so then I started knowing the name, and so as soon as it came up that he was doing the score for the series, I'm like, oh, well, he totally does Tangled music already. Yep. So so that was,
I like that continuity. Good job, crew.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So the music is great. Vex is like, it is so great. I still love that she's like, you do it for the money, and that's all there is to it. But now we're starting to see her understand what it's like to have inspiration. Like, you get the impression that this girl's beaten down. She's like every Gen Z in existence right now. And she just needs that like little bit of inspiration to get her going. And it's fantastic. Like, you go, girl, you stand up against the man. And and you fight back for what's right in your city. That's so great. It's like, and I swear season 2 feels so much like it's very topical. And I love that. It's like, I love subtle topical things in cartoons, because, that's the sort of thing that that is in there because the adults will know what's going on. And hopefully if they have kids, we'll be discussing it with their kids. And it's a way to tie it all in together. And I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
There were also, at least I can think of, right off the top of my head, can think of at least one callback to the movie in this episode. And that's when the collector comes up behind Eugene and he looks up at him. It's Stabbingtons.
Oh,
Like, just straight up, that's what I saw when that happened. I was like, oh my God! Callbacks! I mean, and I will say, I was like crazy tired on Saturday night, and I made myself stay up and watch it. And so I didn't absorb it the way I normally absorb it, but there were still lots of little moments that just jumped out at me as great.
I think that's why I had to watch it again, because I was so tired. And I was like, oh, I'm up. I'm already going to watch it. I'm like, how can I not? It's been gone for so long. And then I was like, so I got to watch this tomorrow.
I was exactly the same. I was so tired. And that's why it felt extra jarring the first time I watched it, like the pacing, because I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired. What is going on?
I mean, I know that we have the question of if they so very clearly were leaving Varderos at the end of Beyond the Coronal Walls, why are they in Varderos at the beginning of the next episode? And, you know, reasons. It's just...
Eugene forgot his wallet. He had to turn around. It happened.
I like... there you go.
I like that one. Blame it on Eugene. It's probably his fault anyways.
I don't know, Shorty ate all the food again, and they had to go resupply. I mean, after all, they're loading barrels of water. Therefore, we can blame Shorty. I don't know.
I liked it. I think my problem, and I know this is a completely, totally personal problem, but after we had such a jarring, amazing, intense new dream episode, to have something like that afterward, I was like, come on, like...
That actually reminds me very much of Rapunzel's Enemy, in that we had, you know, Tangled Before Ever After, followed by What the Hair, and both of those were really intense and emotional, and you could feel the series going places, and then you follow it up with Rapunzel being booed, and you're like, what?
You're like, I'm confused. Wait, where's those rocks?
That's why for the longest time, Rapunzel's Enemy was like the bottom of my list.
Yeah.
And like it wasn't budging. And I think it's no longer the bottom of the, I mean, obviously, other than me not liking Not in the Mood, it's more than second from the bottom also now, because I mean, I discussed this last week. I don't need to go back into that. But yeah, so that's probably part of what it is that it's not the last episode. And when you're that emotionally attached to the last episode, it's that you can't expect the follow-up to live up to it.
I was like, this is great. I'm going to watch Beyond the Corona Walls again. I was like, I need it. I'm sorry. But it was so good. It was really good. And after I watched it again, I was like, this is really cute. And Rapunzel's adorable. And...
Oh my gosh, Rapunzel is so great in that episode. Like, seriously. She's so cute. And oh my gosh, okay, I'd like to point out that she actually did archery with an actual bow.
Yes, I'm so proud.
She's growing. Character development.
Are coming true. I mean, I've wanted her to be an archer forever, and ever since they released the toy of the bow, I was like, I need to see her with an actual bow.
I know.
Challenge of the Brave, she used her guitar, which was cute, but it wasn't an actual bow.
No.
It's not. I love me some archery. I myself am an archer, so every time there's an archery girl, I'm like, yes, more of that, please.
Me too. I'm really into archery, and I can blame Robin Hood for that. I'm pretty sure, because that was like my jam when I was a little kid. And I was like, I want to be an archer like Robin Hood. So, but yeah, so Rapunzel's adorable, and props to them for their solution to the problem. You got a dude with armor with teeny tiny holes in it, so you throw bees at him. I mean, okay.
It's practical.
Oh my God,
I mean, it's unique.
It's like that Cards Against Humanity card. Bees? Maybe that's how they came up with the solution for that episode. They're just like, all right, we need a solution, guys.
How are we going to fix this? Bees?
Because at the beginning I was like, bees? I'm like, this is really random.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, I will agree. Going back to the pacing, one of the things that kind of bugged me is that you would think that if he was that effective of a lawman for so long, that he would have started remembering how to do this stuff and would not have been failing at absolutely everything. And so it was like, what is going on here, you know? So, yeah, and then the bees were so random, and the bees turned out to not be nearly as random as we thought. But
poor Max. Max got the short end of the stick in this episode.
Yes, he did.
I did notice this on first viewing, but forgot to mention it, and then somebody else beat me to it. But The lady with
lady. Yes, yep. I know that also. So
I was like, hey!
Hey, absolutely. So, like, does he know her? Does he idolize her? Does she get her bees from him? I mean,
yes, it's her bee supplier.
Bee supplier. I need another hive, Quaid.
Oh man.
But yeah, so I mean, there was a lot of really fun stuff in this episode, and I really enjoyed it, and it was super cute. But can we now talk about like the flashbacks and how like every time this series does flashbacks, it does them in a very interesting way.
Oh, I loved it.
And it's not even always necessarily flashbacks, because like in the Return of Strongbow, there's that entire shadow sequence, which I am still completely in love with. It is such a great sequence. And so every time Tangled steps outside of its own personal norm to do this kind of stuff, I really freaking love it. And I know that Tom Caulfield did the flashbacks for this episode, and it reminds me of in Pascal's story how he's the one who did the closing art to the friendship song in the same style as him doing the credits. So I thought that was a really great nod there, and then it was just reminiscent here, and then you've got like, I remember our first big introduction to this was in Under Wraps with the paper art at the beginning of the episode.
So good.
Yeah. So the paper art is Megan Tyndall, and she's got a great she's got an Instagram, and I highly recommend you guys check it out. If you don't know what it is, it's MB_paper sculpt is her address.
Ooh. I'm gonna go follow her.
Yes, that's her on Instagram, and
her just looking at the stuff from that episode, it's so incredible because like it looks flat in the actual episode, and some of it is, but then there are like whole buildings that are like actual buildings that they made out of paper, and
I know,
I mean, so cool.
Every time I watch it, I'm like, wait, okay, which one's real and what's not? Like, I can't even tell. It looks so good.
It's so great. And then, I mean, I'm looking at her pictures right now, and there's this one where it's an interior shot of the book, and it's against this curved window, and they actually used a red, I guess it's a paper because it's all paper art, but it's a very thin red paper that not only is there a silhouette to, but when they shine the light through it, it's or I guess it's more paper because it's paper art. But I mean, like it's astounding. You look at it and you immediately begin to question what's paper and what's special effect. Even at looking at a photograph of the thing, you're like, wait. I mean, she is so skilled, and I highly, highly recommend looking at her work.
Yeah, this is cool. I'm like scrolling through it. I'm like, wow.
Right?
She worked on Laika's film from 2016, Kubo and the Two Strings. She did the paperwork for that. So like Little Hanzo and all the
paper stories were hers.
Yeah, all the origami, that was her. So yeah, it's really incredible that we have someone so incredible working on the show, even just briefly.
Yeah, I mean, them hunting her out and saying, hey, come do this thing with us for us. Yeah. And it's so good. It's so detailed and amazing and inspirational, and it makes me wish I had any inkling how to work with paper, you know? So this episode isn't the first time it's happened, but it's definitely called to mind that one of the things that has bothered me about season 1 is that while there is more people of color in season 1 than there is in the movie, which is entirely white, we're already seeing a huge increase in that regard.
Yes.
Because we have Adira shows up, and we know that she's with us through the season at least. And then we also have Lance has been bumped up to regular, which that's amazing, because I'm like, why is their most significant, person of color not in the series all that much? But now he's been bumped up to that status. And then there's Quaid himself. So when Quaid was originally designed by Bobby Pontius, he was not a black man. But when they cast Reg E. Cathey as his voice actor, they had to redesign him. And Amanda Jolly was given that job. So the way that Amanda phrased it is that they wanted to take up the same amount of space as Bobby's design. And so all she had to redesign was the head. And I love the design that she came up with. And I love that already 2 episodes in, we are coming up with more people of color, and that's fantastic. And I hope this continues. I really do, because that has one of the things that had been niggling at me, is that in this day and age, it should not be that way. You know, it's like Disney needs to start taking more responsibility for things like that, because they are a leader in the industry and people do look up to them. And I mean, getting all political and stuff, but I mean, this is some of the stuff I don't often touch on my blog, because I try to keep my blog very, I want to say user-friendly and non-confrontational, but as a speaking platform, you're going to find me being a little bit more confrontational. But yeah, so I'm really, really pleased with that, and I hope we see more of that in the future.
And we even saw an increase in like the first season with the background characters. Like all the background characters in the movie are white people.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then there were background, like there's that one lady who has kind of an Esmeralda look to her.
Yeah, and her husband and their daughter. And so you've got this whole little black family in Corona, and you've got that one Asian guard. And
there's that older Asian man.
That older Asian man, and you've got Xavier. And so we are seeing an increase with speaking roles and major presences in the series. As that gets more important, that's very, very relevant to today's standards and what we ought to be looking for in cartoons. Let's see. Oh, also on a similar topic of having an increase of people of color, we are also having an increase of female characters, which is great, because considering the star is a young woman, they really ought to be having more female characters with strong presences. And Cassandra's great. And don't get me wrong, Cassandra is freaking great, and I love her. But all the other characters in season 1, you had Rapunzel and you had Cassandra, and then everybody else was recurring or minor. And so now that we've got Adira, and that's awesome, and then Vex is going to be 3 episodes strong, and that's awesome. And we know that we have more female characters coming up in a few upcoming episodes, because I'm very curious about this mysterious character that Kathy Najimy is voicing, that they haven't given us a name. And it's very unusual for them to not name the character. So I'm very, very curious about that aspect. But I mean, and then we've got, the list of characters that we have for season 2 isn't very long yet, but there are several female roles coming up, and that makes me happy. I'm really hoping for a lot more strength coming from the female characters. So
we got Stallion. I keep saying.
You know what? Me too. I read it wrong, and I try to say it right.
I'm always like Stallion. I'm like, no, that's not right.
That's incorrect.
Yes, Stallion. We've got Stallion, and then we've got like Serafina and Madame Canardist.
Yes.
I also can't say her name right.
I think my favorite thing about the female characters in this show is they're all like total badasses. Like the ones that we've met so far are so great.
They really are. Even when you look at like Ariana, it's like, first of all, being as diplomatic as she is all the time is a badass move. That's a tough thing to be. But then when her husband chucks a sword at her, she knows what to do with it. So,
well, she is Dariana.
So. She is Dariana. That's right. That's true. She is Dariana. So yeah, I agree that it's all of the women who have been in this series have had very strong presences, and I really appreciate that too. Even when they were villains, they had very strong presences. So yeah, that's a awesome addition to the series. It's just season 2 is better than season 1, and it's only 2 episodes in.
I know.
Like you can really feel the difference, and you can. I know it's a common thing for season 1 of a series to kind of, piddle around a little bit, let people get the feel for the characters, a feel for the setting. This one had an advantage that we already knew at least 2 of the cast. The 2 main characters of the cast, we already knew them. But now we get to really explore the world, and we're getting to explore it with Rapunzel. And now that she's outside the wall, you're really starting to feel it take off. Like, it's getting deeper and more meaningful. And, like I said, more topical, which is impressive. And I really appreciate that. I feel like season 2 is going to be more intense than season 1, and I get the feeling that season 3 is going to be more intense than season 2, and it's going to wreck us by the end. Just
it's gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt so bad.
It's gonna hurt so bad.
Bring it on.
Hurts so good.
Honestly. I mean, exactly.
And then it'll all be okay in the end. Most likely.
It will. Yes, it will. Absolutely.
For a certain amount of characters.
Oh God.
There are some that we're not sure about.
Well, I mean, Chris did say in a question and answer on Discord recently that there are some characters that they will explain what happened, and there are some that we're just going to have to assume the camera never panned over to them because they're there, but we never saw them. So.
And that's fair. I mean, there was scrolling through my YouTube recommendations, it's like, why isn't Cassandra at Eugene and Rapunzel's wedding? And I'm like, because she hadn't been
invented yet. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the big
There's
thing.
only so much that the crew is going to be able to do with this storyline. At some point, they're going to have to be like, yeah, okay, they were there. It's just, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Or, they could show us the wedding with everybody.
Except that, that's another thing Chris said, is that they're not going to redo the wedding. I mean, it doesn't mean that doesn't mean that they're not going to necessarily do stuff around the wedding.
Yeah.
But they're not going to show us I think the way that he put it was that story has already been made. There's no point in reanimating it. Yeah. Which also, I know people
hasn't been made. Oh, we didn't get to see the vows. Thank you very much.
Just show us them writing them. That's fine. I don't care. I just want to know what they say.
Exactly. Show us that kiss from a different angle.
Yes.
5 more angles. That's fabulous.
Yep.
But
I cannot get over that.
People often ask me on Tumblr if I think that they're going to redo any of the movie scenes in series animation, and given what Chris said regarding the wedding, I think the answer to that now is a definitive no. Yeah. Because if they're not interested in reanimating something that already exists, if they're going to do that, they're going to do it in the homage style, such as Eugene backing into the collector and looking up the way that he did when he backed into who was that? Apache. When he backed into Apache.
Well, and from a fan's perspective, part of me is like, oh, I want to see it. I want to see how they feel, and I want them to flash back to it. But then I'm like, but this is giving them the opportunity to give us new things and more story. Yeah. And down the road, when we don't have this anymore, we're going to be like, we appreciate all the new stuff that we got, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. And I do appreciate that we get the feels and we get the nods. So, for example, in the Quest for Varian, when they were up in the tower, and they didn't reanimate anything, but Eugene was giving Max a tour of the events of
the final. It's so cute, but it hurts so bad.
You're like, oh my stop. God, right? It's not funny. He's like, that's where I died. I'm like, stop.
Wasn't that a cute first date? It's like
he calls her honey. I was like, oh my God.
I'm sorry, but her shoving you in the closet was not a date. I mean, I love you, but it wasn't a date.
No. Hey, he likes when she manhandles them. We've already established this.
True facts. It is true. That is true. You adorable delusional boy, though. I mean,
It's the love. It's blinding him.
You didn't even consider it a date until maybe later that day. Like,
right?
After the whole, like, cave with the water. Like,
maybe after you sang and danced with her at a restaurant is when you started thinking of it as a date, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
He gives her that cute little smile when they're in the tunnel, but I feel like really he starts considering it as a date when they're at the campfire.
There you go. Like, in retrospect, the date was a date, wasn't it? And she's like, what's a date?
Yeah, exactly.
She says it just like Giselle in Enchanted. What's a date? Or not at Giselle. Sorry, Prince Edward says that.
Date? What's a date? A date! What's a date? Yes. God, I love Enchanted. So, while we're on the topic of Eugene, quick question. Ellie.
Yes.
Do you want to go over your theory?
Sure, we could talk about it.
Sure, let's go with the theory.
Yeah, okay, so let me put on my tinfoil hat. I don't have to put it on because it's been glued to my head for like a week now. So, as some people have seen, it's got like 300 notes, so I'm assuming everyone listening has seen it. But the Dark Prince Eugene theory. Mm-hmm. Pretty much the first second I saw Edmund, I was like, are you Fitz dad?
His eyes.
His eyes are the same as Eugene's. Yep. I have been scouring every picture I can find, because I know Eugene has made that exact same expression, like looking up, sad puppy dog eyes, eyebrows drawn, I know he's made that face, and I cannot find it anywhere, but I will keep hunting until I find it.
You must connect that string.
Yeah, I'm confident that it exists. They also have very similar hair color in that dark lighting. Their face shapes are a little different, but fairly similar. Edmund's is just a little longer. I mean, from the very first second they announced him, I read bizarrely charming, and I'm like,
yeah, that was the first thing that got me, was bizarrely charming. I'm like, that's an interesting description to give someone. Yeah. Bizarrely charming, huh?
Just a passing thought. Like, I read that and I'm like, oh, maybe he's Eugene's dad. But then I was like, no, that's insane.
Yeah.
And then the episode starts and it's like 25 years ago, and I'm like,
25? Well, that's in that age range.
We have been waiting for the age for 7.5 years.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I know it's far-fetched, and someone has pointed out that, like, it would be weird if they're both lost royals, which I get that. It would be kind of weird. But, like, Bex pointed out that Varian and Rapunzel also have similar, like, they have similar things together. So why is, like, they could be.
My thing with Varian and Rapunzel is that if you look at their interests and their personalities and whatnot, they're very similarly minded, but it's almost like Varian and Rapunzel are two people who deliberately chose different paths, and this is how their lives changed because of it.
Yeah.
Whereas with Eugene and Rapunzel, it would be like, here are two people who didn't know they were royalty and how they react to finding out that they're royalty.
Yeah.
So it's like, what if Eugene finds out he's this lost prince thing, and he's like, oh, well, I'm not going to come back here and sit on your throne. I'm going to go back to Corona and marry my girl, you know? So obviously we are now at the point with Ariana and Frederick where they have his blessing. He doesn't have to be royalty to marry their daughter. They don't care. That doesn't matter.
Just be an extra perk.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're of royal blood? Great.
Or speaking of royalty at all, another theory that Ellie and I have discussed is maybe Edmund's not his dad, but his uncle.
Yeah.
Maybe Edmund was the older brother, and his sibling, either sister or brother, was not in line to inherit the throne because of that. And I mean, obviously I've seen multiple conversations, and I've been involved with them on Tumblr about Corona law versus modern our world law regarding royalty. And obviously the writers do not have to pay any attention to modern British royal law in order to tell their story. But in modern British royal law, the children of the brother who is not set up to inherit the throne are not royalty. They are nobility. They are lords and ladies, but they are not royalty.
Yeah.
And so that would mean that Eugene had title and stature, but himself was not royal.
You guys, Lord Eugene Fitzherbert.
Oh man.
Oh. Woo.
So here's my thing with this.
Dark Lord Eugene.
Oh, even better.
He sounds like a Sith Lord. I love it.
So here's my thing with
Lord.
this.
So now he's really to Voldemort because now he's the Dark Lord.
Yeah. So here's my thing with this. And I've talked to Bex about this, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about seeing somebody that could possibly be his dad, because we've waited for so long to know backstory about him, and the fact that it's kind of like possibly staring us straight in the face freaks me out. And I'm like, I just want it to be. I want them to do him right. Like, I don't want them to mess him up.
I want them to do us right.
Yeah.
I want, this has been 7.5 years of us waiting for this, because we got the I don't do backstory line, and I'm like, but do it.
Please.
I know you said you don't do it, but go ahead and do it.
We want to know more things about you.
Yeah.
So, like, tell us more stuff. And we got hardly anything in season 1 except for, like, Lance.
And honestly, you get the impression that Rapunzel just straight up respects the I don't do backstory and hasn't really asked, you know, because Stallion was a shock.
Yeah.
And, you know, when Lance showed up, Lance was a surprise, not a shock, but he was a delightful surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of get the impression that Rapunzel doesn't know because he said, I don't do backstory, and she's respecting that and hasn't asked.
Yeah.
And then I also get the impression, honestly, that Cassandra and Eugene have discussed it a little bit before Cassandra v. Eugene, because the way that Eugene addressed Cassandra being an orphan, he wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
Yes.
You get the impression that that has come up at some point in the 6 months before the series started.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, there's just little things, and you feel like, okay, so can we assume that some things have been said that the audience hasn't been privy to, or are we going to be as blind to everything as Rapunzel?
Yeah.
I mean, does she know things we don't, or is just all just straight up? I mean, and then we had we've had so many little clues. I mean, we all are well aware that he's not from Corona at this point.
Yeah.
Because they've dropped enough clues that were blatant.
I mean, they even mention it in the newest episode because he talks about being arrested by Quaid and Varderos.
Yeah, and these are my old, and he mentioned called Varderos my old stomping grounds.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we know that he hung out around Varderos a lot. We know that he hung out in that like high mountain pass between Corona and Varderos.
Yeah.
Because that's where Frederick and Ariana were when he's like, oh, no, I know those mountain passes. I know how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And
we also know he's been to Italy.
Yes.
There's stuff to steal in Italy. And best line ever, I swear.
It really is.
And I mean, and we have little things like he almost told us in the prologue of the series, and then Rapunzel cut him off.
Yep.
And
I'm like, no,
like
just start it.
With and also with the Goodwill Festival, how he was talking about this is a thing that you guys do. You guys go all out on this, don't you?
Yeah,
or
they've made it very clear that he's not from Corona.
Yeah, they made it very clear that he's not from Corona, and we know that, like, it's just, I'm that whole good old 99.53724% sure that we're going to find out everything we want to know in this season. Not absolutely everything.
But then,
please.
To quote Rapunzel, what if it's not everything I dreamed it would be? Like, that's what I am in my head. Like, I want to hear it, but then I'm like, I don't, because this is like 7 years getting answered. Freaks me out, man.
At the same time, I'm going to remind you that you were freaked out about Stallion also, and look how that turned out.
I know. And
I feel like with Eugene's whole backstory, we don't, like, we haven't collectively as a fandom come to like one, agreed upon headcanon for him.
Yeah, we don't have
for his backstory. Everybody has their own version.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the kind of jarring thing with Stallion was.
Yeah, we were all kind of like agreed upon. Oh, Rapunzel was his first love, actual. And it's like, oh, sure, he had relationships, but they weren't relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, he had a fiance. We were like, what? You just shattered 7 years of headcanon. What?
Yeah. But it turned out okay.
I absolutely understand that I don't want to call it anxiety, because anxiety is a very specific thing.
Yeah.
But that kind of niggling worry, that concern that this isn't going to be what I want. I mean, honestly, when the series first started, one of my biggest fears was that it was not going to be the way that I had been imagining it for 7 years.
Yep.
And it's like, because I roleplay as Rapunzel, I've been writing her all this time, and I'm like, well, what if I have been getting her personality wrong this whole time?
Yeah.
Things like that. And honestly, the series has only confirmed that I've been getting her personality right the whole time.
Yep.
And that makes me feel awesome. But it's a similar thing. It's like, so we all have these ideas for Eugene, and because he has no clear-cut backstory, we're like, okay, well, I know that the potential of nobility was a fan favorite back in the day, because we're like, well, you know that Eugene means noble born, and Fitzherbert means son of Herbert. So maybe he's the illegitimate child of some noble named Herbert. And I mean, that one went, a lot of people jumped on that one. That was a very, people were fond of that one.
I would be very proud of the crew if they did make him a well-born person for having the name Eugene. I'm like, yes! Well, someone cares about names as much as I do.
Yep. So, I mean, it's all really very interesting in that regard. And and of course, we also have the whole, I know that the movie made him out to be like this loner. He's got this like, he's got this personality where you can tell that he acts like he pretends that everybody likes him, but he knows they don't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're like, oh, by the way, in the series, his old best friend's gonna come back, and we're like, he had a best friend, you know?
He had a what now?
Had a what? And so that's the interesting thing with Eugene's backstory, is that it's this blank slate, and we've all had these little headcanons all along, and we're finding out piece by piece whether we were right or wrong. And so far we've been wrong. And that's here's the weird part, is that so far we've been wrong, but also somehow they made us okay with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I was wrong, but I like the way you guys did it. So great.
I really only hated the whole stallion thing for like a day.
Yeah. And then we were like, okay.
I didn't hate it. I was just shocked by it.
Yeah.
And I felt betrayed.
We were all okay. I know that we were all okay with she's his ex, because we were like, oh.
We're like, obviously.
I mean, obviously Eugene's had relationships before, but not like relationships. And then they changed. Then they changed ex to fiance, and that was a bomb.
Like, you sent me that video, and I was like reading, and I was like, wait a minute, what was that? I was like, does that say fiance?
I also had to rewind the video, because I was like, wait, did they just say fiance? Did Zach just make that face? Like, he's shocked by what she just said? I have to go back.
Yeah.
And then I was like, Beyonce? Are you kidding me?
I was like, I need a moment. I was
like, I'm gonna cover up my whole room full of Tangled stuff. I can't bear to look at his face right now. I'm so upset.
We're on a break right now. We're on a break.
You were actually mad at Eugene Fitzherbert just for existing.
Okay, but then the next day, that clip came out with him looking the saddest he's ever looked, and I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm protecting him with my life. I don't care what he's done.
I was like, never mind. I'm sorry, baby. I love you.
So we have obviously there's a lot of fun future stuff coming up, and sincerely, I am utterly convinced that we are going to learn so much about Eugene this season.
Yep.
And I'm really excited.
Season of Eugene!
Yes!
Really excited to see where exactly this is taking us. Because, I mean, also, honestly, I'm excited to see anything from Corona. I mean, let us know what's going on with Varian. Yes. I know that there's the headcanon going around that, like, I threw out the idea, but I think multiple people had the same theory, that they've got all of these people locked up in Corona's jail together, and Corona's jail is very easy to break out of, apparently, Dwayne. But, I mean, so it's like, so we have the theory that Varian and Lady Kane and maybe the Stabbingtons and Andrew are all going to break out together. And that would be kind of amazing.
That would be wild.
It would be.
Like, seriously, that would be amazing. I would love for that to be the case. I mean, because if Varian tied himself up with other villains and became more villainous, and then somewhere along the lines, like, his grieving ended and he realized he was doing wrong, like, what if they're hunting down the princess and whatnot, and they're going to these other towns and they're seeing what good she's been doing, and at first he's angry that she's helping them and didn't help him, but then he starts to, like, realize that she does what she can.
Yeah.
You know?
So, oh, man.
Also, brief aside, I hope they get back to the Stabbingtons at some point, because I'm hoping that they're going to connect, because where we left off.
Yeah. They were in jail.
Where we left off the first time, they were upset with Eugene. And then where we left off in Cassandra versus Eugene, they were still upset with Eugene. And then at the wedding, they're crying.
Yeah.
So I hope they will bridge that gap. I know it's not that important of a gap, but I've always been curious about that.
See, part of my thing with that is that I always have this kind of little headcanon that Rapunzel befriends them somehow.
Yeah.
And that they're invited to the wedding because she invited them to the wedding. And it's not that they couldn't care less about Eugene, but that they're really there for Rapunzel.
Yeah.
So that's my headcanon. And so I'd like to see if they address it at all. Because, I mean, for one thing, it's the frickin' Stabbingtons. Bring them back, you know?
Yeah.
You've already brought them back. Jail is easy to break out of. Just, I mean, honestly, the number of breakups there have been in Corona, I'm just like, clearly these people can break out again. Like, just plan a little better this time. Don't rely on a horse with an ego and also a sense of self-preservation, and you'll be fine, you know?
I think I have a crack theory about how Varian's going to get out of jail. I'm sitting here thinking about it. It's going to be the Freebird episode, and it's going to be like Not in the Mood. Somehow, by some extravagant, specific way, the bird magic is going to get to Varian. He's going to turn into a bird, and he's going to fly out of jail.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I like this theory, and I will believe it until it is disproved.
If you turn out to be right, I'm going to, like, get an award and mail it to you, because I
will buy you whatever Tangled merchandise you want.
Amazing thing. Buy her the satchel. That's what she wants.
Oh yeah, I need a satchel.
But like, that is the most ridiculous, amazing theory that I think I've ever heard, and I love it. I love it. That is so stupid. I love it.
It's so, like, extravagant, like Not in the Mood was. It's like, it just happened to get there. So it happens to turn him into a bird.
Get that potion to him, and then he somehow, I mean, I understand that he's an alchemist, which is also a chemist, but, like, how did you turn a mood-changing potion into a truth serum? Like, there's a lot of questions that have not been answered regarding that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want the magic to somehow get to Varian and turn him and Rudiger into birds so they can escape that jail.
And they can't change. He can't figure out how to change back. And so he's just a bird the rest of the show.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Yes. I want everyone to see their precious cinnamon roll boy turned into a bird for the rest of eternity.
Oh my god. And with that, we have now crossed the hour line thereabouts. Yeah. And so with this beautiful crack theory that Varian is going to be turned into a bird, I'm going to call episode 2 done.
Yes.
We are clearly going to cover every episode, but we are not always going to have all the descriptions for the next episodes coming up. So is there stuff that you would like us to talk about? Is there specific people you would like to train us to get on the show? We, just so you know, we have already in discussions with Ricky Roxburgh. He will be a guest star at some point. We're hoping we're going to snag him for right after Vigor the Visionary. That's our goal. So is there anything you'd like to hear? Is there anything you want to talk about? Do you have any theories you'd like us to discuss and address? Consider this like the Tumblr Ask box. We are open for suggestions. If you want to send me or any of the three of us asks regarding this and specify that you want this addressed on the show, let us know, and we will add it to our list, and we will start looking at things to discuss.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Just a note, it doesn't only have to be people who work on the show as guests. We are welcome to take people from the fandom as well.
Yes. We have at least 2 interested parties who want to be guests on the show. So if you would like to be a guest on the show at some point, let us know. All that kind of fun stuff. So, this has been Tangled Talk with Team Awesome, and we hope you guys are enjoying the show still. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.